Hi, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Jay Harness. And I'm your host, Jay Harness, and it's great to be with you today. Here we are at the end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and today's guest is really special when we think about wrapping this particular month up. She's not only a gene positive breast cancer survivor, but she's also an author. Her book, Crushing the Cancer Curveball, is a #1 international bestseller. As you'll be able to see over her shoulder, she has a wonderful podcast that she's done that I've been able to be on called Kicking Cancer's Ass. And really important for me with my interest in exercise oncology is the fact that she's such a strong advocate for cancer fitness for breast cancer patients. So it is truly my honor to welcome Joelle Kaufman.
Well,
Hey,
Dr. Harness,
Joelle.
hey, Dr. Harness, it is fantastic to be here.
You know what? My mother didn't call me Dr. Harness when I was born.
All right, I'll call you Jay.
Yeah. Joelle, we know each other so well. So please
Of
call me
course.
Jay. So where
Of
should we
course.
begin? You've got such a fabulous story, and I enjoyed recently meeting your sister
Yeah.
and the other broadcasts that we did just a few weeks ago. And so why don't we start with your family history of breast cancer? I think that's a good place to
Well,
start.
how about we do that and I'll mix in exercise.
Perfect.
So, my mother was first in 1983 and was diagnosed with, I believe it was stage 1 triple negative breast cancer and had a modified radical mastectomy unilaterally. And once she recovered from that and the expanders and the what, she resumed playing tennis. And my mother is well, now she's a little bit older, but she was a killer on the tennis court. Like she was not there to just hit the ball around. She was there to play.
She was a competitor, right?
Yeah, I think she was like a 4.5, which I
Yeah.
think a 4.0, 4.5-ish. Like she was really good. And for her, that was also her way of hanging on to something normal and something that made her feel strong. And that's the model, right? And then when she had a recurrence and went through chemo and radiation, she kept playing tennis. So the mental model I had was these things happen, they're not pleasant, and you can and should stay active. Well, fast forward 20 years. My sister does an Ironman. It's amazing. She's 29 years old, and 2 months post Ironman, she gets diagnosed with a stage 1 triple negative breast cancer. This woman is in the absolute best shape of her life. And they wanted to be very aggressive. She was very young, and the chemo was rough. And she kept walking and moving and trying to use her body because it made her feel better. So, in the interim, there's been lots of other cancers on lots of different people. It's just something my family deals with. And I was about to have prophylactic bilateral mastectomies in 2003, January 10th, 2023, excuse me. January 10th, 2023, I was supposed to have this big surgery. And so I did what I thought any normal person would do before something like that. I got in good shape. I exercised. I wanted to be as strong as possible. I wanted my body strong, my heart strong. I also went on a really great vacation beforehand because, why not? But still exercising. And I found out the day before my surgery that I had a stage 2 triple negative breast cancer tumor, and we were going to do neoadjuvant chemo before surgery. And so I turned to my now new best friend, my oncologist, and I said, "Are there any restrictions on me?" And she said, "No, whatever you can do, you should do." Well, Jay, I had been working out 3 times a week, lifting weights, resistance, high intensity with my best friend for 17 or 18 years. So I said, I'm going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep walking on the days in between or riding the Peloton. And again, it made me feel healthy. It made me feel strong. Sometimes I couldn't, run as fast or as long or ride the bike as long. I felt the cardio, but My girlfriend was funny. She said, "You're so annoying. You're lifting more weight than I lift, and you're going through chemo," right? Because my legs were still strong. And I held on to that. But here's the thing. I recovered really fast from my
Yep.
surgeries, and I responded really well to my chemo.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And, we can talk about that, but on the recovering really fast, when you work out and push yourself, whether it's a weight, whether it's cardio, you'd know better than me, but who cares? You push yourself, your body has to recover. And you start building, I felt I was building, frankly, muscle memory, biological memory of how to recover. And so when my body had to recover from a bilateral mastectomy with deep flap, which that's a long surgery. Mine was
You
14
bet. Oh, of
hours,
course. You
right?
bet.
But
Sure.
I didn't need narcotics afterwards. I was able to manage it with Tylenol and ibuprofen. And, I was I wasn't allowed to lift for 6 weeks for 12 weeks, but I was allowed to e-bike at about 6 weeks. And
Yep.
I was recovering quickly.
Yep.
Not I was giving my body the chance to recover, but the recovery was easier because I went in
Yeah.
strong. So what I tell everyone is the best thing you can do if you're worried about cancer is get as healthy as you possibly can be so that if you get cancer, you are strong and your body is able to handle treatment. And then you told me on one of our last calls that continuing to exercise improves your response to treatment. Like, how great is that?
You bet. Well, listen, let me jump in for a minute. That's a beautiful dialogue. As I shared with you and your sister recently, Joelle, right out the door because of your antecedent histories of exercise, including your mom, by the way, right out the door, you all had about an 18, pushing a 20% improved survival almost no matter what. Okay. And it's interesting, your emphasis on prehab, getting ready for surgery. My posting today on LinkedIn is on this very subject of prehab
Hmm.
and how it gets you prepared both nutritionally, muscle mass wise, cardio fitness wise for the surgery. And you just beautifully articulated how much quicker you recovered from all of it. So you are the walking, living example of everything we talk about in exercise oncology. So, wow,
Well,
what a
well,
great
I'm so
story.
glad. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you don't have to do anything extreme. I didn't change how I was exercising. I just kept doing it. And when I needed to make an adjustment because the cardio did get harder, Jay. Like
sure. Oh,
it
of
did.
course.
And that was the part I really noticed. So, I said, "Okay, we either have to give more time because I'm going to go slower, or we just have to figure out, I got a pretty good cardio workout in less time because my heart was
Sure.
working harder."
Sure.
So it was, but it also, there's so many of these moments when you're going through this journey with cancer that you feel like cancer's driving the bus. And these are the moments where you say, "No, no, 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 I'm driving the bus. I can do this."
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's powerful. And
Yep.
because in the book I talk about these happiness tripwires. And so, exercise, especially because I got to exercise with a dear, dear friend, it was a 1 hour series of happiness tripwires, endorphin releases, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine. You just feel better.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, again, you've made a couple really pertinent points, but one of the big ones is actually exercising with somebody and having fun at it. Okay. That's a really important point. People think, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. Well, you don't have to go to the gym. Also, the other point you made, which is really important, when I first started doing this, people say, "Oh my gosh, Jay's advocating getting ready for the Ironman contest or running a 10K rate." No, 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 no. We're talking about moderate intensity exercise. A good example is 5 days a week of walking briskly, getting your heart rate into the low 100s for 30 minutes, 5 days a week, combining that with 2 to 3 days of resistance bands or Actually, if you want to go to the gym, great. There's a variety of ways of exercising. And it's really important that we emphasize that to folks, and you're doing it beautifully.
Well, and as I said, my mother played tennis. What I will say is, chemotherapy, some chemotherapies, you'd know better than me, some chemotherapies impact bone density over time.
Yeah.
But I was lifting weight. I was
Yeah.
under load. I'd put it on my back. I'd put it over my head. I'd, lift it from the ground. Well, they did my bone density scans after all the chemo, and they're like, well, not a problem there. I'm like, well, because I'm
That's
putting my,
right.
but that's the kind of things because, of course, you want to treat the cancer. You have to treat the
Of
cancer.
course.
But there are long-term implications of the treatments. And if we can do things that aren't a hardship, like go to Target, get a couple of dumbbells, and just do some lunges with dumbbells, or put them over your head, whatever it is, and put your body under a little bit of load, you're actually triggering your body to build up your bone density. And that's
Yeah.
good for you.
Well, the other thing we're learning, we've got this 35 years worth of improved clinical outcomes from exercise, and you've described them perfectly. Now, what's going on is the scientists are now looking at the cellular, molecular levels in the physiology at the cell level in our bodies. And guess what they're finding?
What?
Particularly with the weight training you're doing, every time you're exercising your muscles, you are literally releasing into your bloodstream things called myo meaning muscle kinds, proteins. These myokines have an anti-suppressant effect on cancer cells, an anti-inflammatory effect. The myokines also improve not only the cardio fitness, but our brain health, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that's going on is the release by the immune system of killer lymphocytes, macrophages, and other things. So as we do more, particularly in triple negative, as we do more and more immunotherapies, hopefully one of the ideas is going to be exercise maybe the day before your immunotherapy, boosting the system, and then giving the immunotherapy with the hope that it'll improve the results with the immunotherapy. So
This sounds good
it's
to me.
all continuing to evolve. Well, let's focus for a couple of minutes on your book, Crushing the
Sure.
Cancer Curveball. How did you come up with that title? That's a unique title.
Well, it's interesting because when my mother got cancer, I think the way I mentally thought about it was like, that's a curveball. That was unexpected. We didn't have a family history of that. And I also knew from, and maybe I was the naivete of youth, but it was very early. The doctors were very positive that they could achieve a complete PCR,
Sure.
right? And so I was like, all right, my mom's not going to die. This might suck for a little bit. We got to face the curveball, but it's not taking her out. And that metaphor stayed with me. And then I had the freaky thing happen that my second kid fell in love with baseball when he was 2 years old. And it turned out not only did he love it, but he's gifted at it. He plays at the collegiate level. He's really a wonderful player to watch, but he's a hitter. He's an outfielder hitter. And so, in trying to connect with my kid, I used to ask him, like, so what do you do when you go up to the plate? He goes, well, Mom, I have an approach. I said, well, what's an approach? He goes, well, I'm thinking about what's happening on the field, where I want the ball to go, and I'm thinking about what kind of pitch I'm looking for. But if I get down two strikes, I got to change my approach because then I got to swing at whatever comes at me. And if it's a curveball, I not have to know to lay off it and then take the swing. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was about, 7 or 8 years after that conversation, it's like, huh, you respond to cancer as a patient, Jay, with like, oh my God, it's a crisis. I have to do
Right.
everything right now.
Right. No,
But
that's right.
it's actually not.
Correct.
It's serious. You do have to take action. But like a curveball, it's actually moving slower than you appear, with the exception of, I believe, leukemia and lymphoma. Let's just
Sure.
put them in a different category. Solid tumors, right? There's a bit of time to make a plan, and you can even shape the plan to your life as opposed to your life being the plan,
Yeah.
right? There were trips I wanted to take, there were things I had on the agenda, and my doctors worked with me so that between my chemo, my surgery, and my immunotherapy, I got to do everything I wanted. And I've talked to many other people who, when they expressed, I would like to go to this wedding, the doctors say, okay, let's work that out because we can do that. And, that's facing the curveball.
Yep. Yep. It's interesting you should say that because as a breast cancer surgeon, I was the first person to usually see the newly diagnosed. The patient and their partner or husband and whoever would come in like deers in the headlight with dilated pupils. Almost the first words out of my mouth were, time is our friend. We're going to plan things so it's personalized for you. Let's take a deep breath and let's work together and make decisions together. Well, as we sort of wrap this up, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about your podcast,
Sure.
your target and then how you came up with kicking cancer's ass. I love it.
Yeah.
So you, Joella.
Well, so the book and the podcast both try to speak to that newly diagnosed person who doesn't have the pattern recognition of I've seen this a dozen times, right? They're my mom, and they're literally thrown off balance. This curveball just showed up, and they cannot ignore it. And with the podcast, what I want to do is tell them what went through your mind when you heard it's cancer is what you got from Hollywood. You got pictures of people in scarves and wigs and looking gaunt and weak and dying. Let me assure you, there are 20 million cancer survivors, and that is not what we look like.
Good for
Cancer
you.
can be obliterated. It isn't always. And that's the problem with cancer is it is a deadly disease
Yep.
and there are people who die from it, and that absolutely sucks. And I look forward to the day when that doesn't happen.
Yep. Boy, boy, don't we all. And then subsequently, after your mom's diagnosis, then your sister, and then yourself, you guys have determined that you're what, BRCA2 positive?
No, we're BRCA1, and
BRCA1. Okay.
we discovered that with my sister's tumor because she was 29. And so,
Sure. Sure.
she was treated at Stanford that time, and they said, we want to do a whole genetic panel. So they
Yep.
did, and they discovered the BRCA1, and she was floored. And I remember looking at her on the phone, saying to her, didn't you assume this? Like I assumed this from
Right.
mom's cancer, which was not a right assumption. But I was like, my mom was 36. She didn't have any women in her generation. My grandmother was an only child. Like
Sure.
there's
Sure.
lots of ways this could have been hidden, right?
Yep.
And so I said, I kind of, or it could have gone through the men. Like who knew?
Yep.
But I was like, I assumed we're Ashkenazi, so we have a higher probability of that early onset triple negative breast cancer. Sounds like we probably have the gene, but it really floored her. When I found out I was BRCA positive, which I did because I had a false positive where they did a MRI guided biopsy, and I said, "Oh, that sucks. I would like to not have to do that. If I didn't have the gene, if I don't have the gene, they're not going to be as reactive to anything they see on my scans." Turned out I had the gene. I really felt bad for my parents because both of their daughters have it, and that felt like a heavy thing to carry. But as I told my mother, I would still take the parents I got and the genes I got, knowing it was BRCA1. It's the most researched genetic mutation. Our type of tumors respond to treatment. Like it's a curveball. It doesn't take us out of the game.
Well, it's a spectacular story. You are a spectacular individual. You continue to contribute and give back to everybody. So it's truly my privilege today to have joined you in a conversation. And as we wrap up, I also want to encourage folks not only to tune in for Kicking Cancer's Ass, but I want to encourage them to also please join us at cancerfitness.org, where we'll have this video, many other resources. So, with all sincerity, Joelle Kaufman, thank you so very much for being with me today.